Continuing from the previous episode 1715, the Furnace of 10,000 Ghosts. Bloom, the king of 10,000 ghosts, who was in a panic, suddenly distorted his delicate face like a beautiful human man, and then roared. He knew that he couldn't let the master of Li's soul eliminate all the resentment power of tens of thousands of ghosts so smoothly, otherwise what awaited him would be failure. Boom! As the voice of the king of ghosts fell, a black flame appeared out of nowhere in the entire void, and soon the countless ghosts that had already permeated the entire space were shrouded as if they were being captured. Focus on yourself and put everything into it. The 10,000 Ghost Melting Pot. This is the unique power of the Ghost Kingdom Powerhouse. It can gather all the soul power together, and use the melting pot to refine and self-explode, and burst out the destruction wave that is not lost to the top fairy art. The power of fairy art has long been reached. It is enough to threaten the 7-star or even 8-star level, and the power of the top immortal arts, and enough to obliterate the real 8-star fighting immortal powerhouse. Even the master of the soul can only temporarily retreat. Weng Om, the evil furnace transformed by the black flames, is about several meters in size, but it hides an extremely mysterious evil aura. From the outside, it seems to be indestructible, and every time a ghost is absorbed, the black flame furnace becomes the extremely weak dark evil lines on the top will deepen a lot. Once the dark evil lines around the black flame furnace are completely bright, I am afraid that the 8-star Dushan perfect powerhouse can only fall below. After all, that level of power, heaven and earth can learn. You did remind me a lot of past events. In return, I will show you what a real feast is. Generals, this time, your efforts and sacrifices have not been in vain. Because you will eventually witness the rebirth and transformation of a supreme being here. Reincarnation, the unruly and domineering arrogance, from the mouth of the Master of the Soul. A moment later, the body of the Master of the Soul, directly and slowly left the island, slowly floating in the air, and immediately there was no ghostly wrap around him. Instead, it is a touch of pink energy, like an elves, surrounding the Lord of Li's soul, with him as the main and the king. It seems to be cheering and cheering for the return of the king. No, impossible. Break me. Seeing Lord Li's actions like this, the king of 10,000 ghosts roared frantically as if he had seen some extremely terrifying scenery. These ghosts do have a deep relationship with the Lord of Li's souls, but they are dead souls. It is precisely because of some special methods of the king of ghosts that they have come to life in a very special way, and their strength has long been lost. If it wasn't for the deep resentment for the Lord of Li's soul in their hearts, but this resentment dissipated without a trace after the Lord Li's words, even watching the Lord of Li's soul who was about to devour the holy flame and began to evolve. These ghosts have a tendency to help Joe and abuse them, and the king of 10,000 ghosts is in chaos. Boom! After a few breaths, the dazzling black flame furnace was condensed, and the power of countless ghosts was completely fused and refined. At this time, the 10,000 ghost furnace was only the size of a palm, and the whole body was filled with a chilling horror. Fluctuating, the whole body of the black flame furnace is wrapped by an invisible force, and even the void collapses instantly. Its power is no less than a top fairy technique. Once it explodes in the retreat here, let alone the desert hinterland, or even the entire the West Shrine will be affected. The Lord of Souls. Go to hell. Looking at the increasingly mysterious Lord of Souls, the king of 10,000 ghosts did not hesitate at all. When he raised his hand, the dazzling black flame furnace in his hand, with bursts of evil aura, directly faced the Lord of Souls. Projected away. Like a meteorite landing, the aura of such power and such aura makes one's pupils shrink tightly. Boom! A deafening voice filled the entire void. At that time, the black flame melting furnace roared away like a vicious dog at the Lord of Soul Li. King of 10,000 ghosts, don't do unnecessary struggle. Today is the day of my breakthrough. You should stay and witness the birth of the superpower. The Soulmaster smiled slightly, his laughter was quite soft, but it was full of awe. I'll see how you can resist my attack. Listening to the understatement of the Lord of Souls, the king of 10,000 ghosts still said without giving up. Even though the power of the 10,000 ghosts furnace has been weakened by the Lord of Souls, at this time, for this guy, it still has the power of destruction. Lovesickness, the power of lovesickness. Lord Li's soul raised his brows slightly, and while he spoke, bursts of pink power ripples slowly emerged from under his feet, and immediately decorated the entire void. The pink acacia power just emerged, and it was like a viscous liquid, which directly wrapped the black flame furnace, making it unable to move at all. The power of holy flame? How is that possible? Watching the pink energy ripples spread, a breath of awe filled the entire void. Looking at the black flame furnace that combines the power of tens of thousands of ghosts to be so unbearable hit, the look of the king of 10,000 ghosts has finally become ugly. Wow. Without any hesitation and indecision, the king of 10,000 ghosts knew that this time he could only return without success. Due to his own reasons, the Lord of Li's soul can only become the purest soul body and cannot condense the human body, but this is also doomed that he can only devour 2 holy flames that ghosts can devour in his life. Beyond this category, the strength of the Lord of Li's soul is already recognized by the Lord of the Thousand Worlds at the perfect level of the 8-star fighting immortal. Once he has mastered a holy flame, his power will take a qualitative leap. After a while, the black flame furnace and the pink power gently flew towards the body of the Lord of Li's soul, and it was obvious that they wanted to devour the black flame furnace and turn it into nourishment for their own promotion. Not good. Seeing such a cunning master of Soul Li, the king of 10,000 ghosts finally lost his voice in horror. Until now, king of 10,000 ghosts knew that he was tricked by master of Soul Li. It seems that the evolution of swallowing has been going smoothly, but this is all the master's strategy. It seems that the master of the soul needs something before his own success. After a while, there was no suspense in the battle between the two. The king of 10,000 ghosts was easily subdued by the Lord of Li's soul. Unfortunately, the Lord of Li's soul did not intend to obliterate him, but put him aside. The Ghost King always felt that it was not only himself who was calculated this time, but when he thought that in order not to expose himself, let Soul Mietian enter here and extradite him by way of sacrifice, and even paid so much price, in the end. It was only for the dowry of the Lord of Li's soul, and the king of 10,000 ghosts was completely unhappy. Here is the place where the master of Soul Li retreats, so be careful. For a while, with the end of the battle between the master of Soul Li and the two, the figures of Xiao Yan and the two also came here together. The real highlight kicked off. Opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis. Continuing from the previous episode 1716. What a terrifying space. He had just broken through the perimeter of the northernmost shrine in the desert hinterland and entered the retreat of the Lord of Souls. Looking at the dark passages around the walls, Xiao Yan's heart was filled with horror. The void here is filled with an extremely terrifying imprisoning force, which makes the flame power in Xiao Yan's body disperse a hint of fear. Lord Li's soul is very careful. He divides his breath into 4 parts and distributes them in 4 temples in the hinterland of the desert. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid we would waste a lot of time. He glanced at the dark walls around him and whispered. The entrance to the northernmost temple is quite strange. It was Xiao Yan who finally used the power of holy flame to break open, but there is no difference here. The figures of the two walked away from the depths with extreme vigilance. Don't talk, be careful, the aura of the Lord of Soul and holy flame is even stronger. After Xiao Yan finished speaking, a trace of gray flames covered his figure, and then he cautiously walked towards the depths of the temple. This time, if it doesn't work, let's be benevolent. It's not a waste of time for us to get to know each other. Seeing Xiao Yan's serious expression, Yu smiled quietly, and immediately followed, as if he was deciding to enter here. Yu just said holding the heart of mortal death, and what Xiao Yan said was right. Yu did indeed have enough treasures to attract the Lord of Li's soul or to threaten him. The two looked vigilant, and after walking cautiously for dozens of minutes, a shockingly huge void slowly appeared in sight. The place where the Lord of Souls retreats should be here, Xiao Yan said solemnly, looking at the strange void in front of him. The space in front of him is endless, and above the void, there are countless red crystals paving the way, which is extremely shocking and dazzling. Most of the power of flame is isolated in the red crystals, so that the power of fire attribute the fighting power is greatly reduced here. This is swallowing flame crystals? After a while, seeing so many swallowing flame crystals, Xiao Yan couldn't help frowning and wondered. So many swallowing flame crystals were not good for his battle. The function of swallowing the flame crystal is to absorb the power of flame. To a certain extent, if fighting in this space, for Xiao Yan, the fighting power will be weakened a lot. The space here is sealed, you can only enter but not go out. Yuer's beautiful eyes were looking at the center of it through countless red crystals, and the passage behind him was also completely closed at this moment. Obviously there was no more any way out. There, at this time, a pink energy halo completely paved the way, and even a terrifying aura that surpassed the heavens and the earth spread out. Yingying, bless me. Xiao Yan put his palm on his chest with a dashing smile, and a trace of warmth continued to overflow, even shaking. Obviously, even Mu Yingying's holy flame heart was trying to stop Xiao Yan. Go, because that kind of power is not something that Xiao Yi can contend with. Let's go. Xiao Yan let go and smiled. Obviously he had already made a decision in his heart. Xiao Yan's tyrannical soul perception power made Xiao Yan clear that the pink halo at the core of this space was the power of acacia broken enteritis, and the place wrapped inside it was a touch of the strongest that was comparable to the sky. Without any thought at all, Xiao Yan knew that this was the place where the Lord of Li Soul retreated, and the most powerful person in the pink halo was only the Lord of Li Soul. This space is incomparably huge, and the countless red flame-swallowing crystals seem to contain strands of pink liquid. Obviously, they have absorbed countless holy flame power, and in the center of the space, there is a lake that is not too huge. First release, the lake is about a few hundred meters in size, but the water is eerily black, and the black is extremely cold. It seems to contain some kind of suffocating strange power. He's in there. I can vaguely sense that you still have a lot of things to do. It's not worth it to die like this. Why don't you forget it? The two of them stood in front of the lake and asked quietly. The Lord of the Soul is very strong, but I don't know where I got the confidence from. I think I will definitely be more tyrannical than him in the future. And this time, it's not just for me, but also for a girl who's been waiting. I hope that I have failed her too much. I hope that this time, I will make up for all my debts. Xiao Yan didn't know why Yuer seemed to have changed after entering here. That playful girl with azure blue hair, a trace of grief poured into the tip of her nose. I had just met with Mu Yingying before. Xiao Yan knew that at that time he was not in love with Mu Yingying, but it was definitely not perfunctory in a friend, but only after Mu Yingying sacrificed, did Xiao Yan realize that it is not only love, but also a responsibility and a responsibility. Xiao Yan stood gently on top of Yan Yanjing, looking at the black lake water indifferently, then his palm suddenly lifted, and a flaming palm print roared away at it. Chi Chi! A strange voice emerged from the lake, but Xiao Yan's flame attack was instantly extinguished like a moth to a flame. You must know that the flame Xiao Yan uses now is an immortal fire, and the power of an immortal fire is so vulnerable under this black lake water, which makes Xiao Yan have to be dignified. This is the Forbidden Lake. The lake has the mysterious power to cut off all the breath of life. If you want to enter it, you can only use suspended animation or a pure soul body. Yuer looked at Xiao Yan's appearance and said, in that case, let's do it. I also really want to see how shocking the way the Lord of Souls devours is. As the voice fell, 3-color holy flames filled Xiao Yan's body, completely covering Xiao Yan's life aura, like a dying man. Normal people, let's go. The two looked at each other and immediately sank into the Forbidden Lake. Bang bang bang. Just after entering the Forbidden Lake, a bone-piercing cold spread throughout the body, causing Xiao Yan to shiver. Even as the swimming distance increased, Xiao Yan's heart suddenly throbbed contraction, as if receiving some fatal stimulus. New 81 Chinese website updates the fastest computer. Resist me. Aware of such a strange power in the Forbidden Lake, Xiao Yan burst out with the power of surging flames, resisting it. The two of them gritted their teeth and walked towards the small island within the Forbidden Lake step by step. Is this the retreat of the Lord of Souls? After a few minutes, the two walked directly over the barrier of the Forbidden Lake and entered the small island surrounded by a pink halo. Just after entering here, Xiao Yan and the two stood on the edge, and the construction of the island here is like a huge pentagram. At the center of the island, a beautiful sedan chair wrapped in countless patterns came into sight. In addition, on some rocks on the island, a handsome man like a human being was shackled by a touch of pink energy, and he was firmly fixed in place. This is the Ghost Kingdom saves all ghosts? Suddenly, Yuer looked at the young man who was bound to death and lost his voice. It was a man wrapped in surging black mist. His dark and arrogant pupils stared at the center of the island, and his dark eyes were full of madness. Although he was bound to the death by the pink shackles, the breath revealed from his body turned out to be an 8-star fighting immortal. Opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis. Continuing from the previous episode 1717. The Ghost Kingdom saves the Ghost King? 8-star fighting immortals. Master of the Soul Palace? Instead of looking at the strange pink light above the island, Xiao Yan stared at the strange man who was bound, shocked. According to Xiao Yan's information, the Ghost Kingdom and the Soul Clan have an inescapable relationship or cooperation, and once they find the master of the Ghost Kingdom, the King of 10,000 Ghosts, I am afraid that they will be able to ask some secrets about Xiao Yan. Xiao Clan's secret. This problem has plagued Xiao Yan for decades. Furthermore, how could a mere disciple of the Soul Academy, Yu know the supreme ruler of the Ghost Kingdom? So all this is their conspiracy, in order to arrest themselves? Thinking of this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but raise a lot of precautions against Yu. Susu, the descendants of Xiao Yan, you can smell the disgusting and inferior aura in your body from a long distance. You are still so annoying. It seems that he noticed Xiao Yan's figure and was restrained. The King of 10,000 Ghosts sneered and roared at Xiao Yan in the distance. Countless strange black mist burst out from under the black robe, and immediately shot straight into the sky like gunpowder, shooting towards Xiao Yan. Feeling such a surging momentum bursting out of the King Wangi, Xiao Yan's face became solemn for the first time. The 3-color holy flame, the swallowing flame technique, and many other means of fighting the soul were displayed in an instant without any thought. A random blow that was as tyrannical as an 8-star fighting immortal powerhouse, if it was taken lightly, it might be enough to wipe out Xiao Yan. Chi-chi! With a sound, the strange black mist directly collided with Xiao Yan's 3-color holy flame, and the two immediately stalemate and calmed down. The King of 10,000 Ghosts, who is as tyrannical as the Kingdom of Ghosts, can actually fall into such a state of embarrassment. It's really hilarious. Stabilizing his figure, Xiao Yan clenched his fists tightly, trying his best to calm his breathing. Step by step, he walked towards where the King of Ghosts was. Hey, kid, give it up, what you want to know, only you can find it yourself. And I can tell you that the Soul Palace and Soul Clan, even our Ghost Kingdom, are not very clear. Furthermore, although I made some mistakes in this sneak attack, but your mere 6-star fighting immortal, even 10 lives are not enough to die. Susu. Seeing Xiao Yan's actions like this, the King of 10,000 Ghosts did nothing but sneered, and immediately looked away from Xiao Yan, raised his head abruptly, and looked at the top of the space with a horrified look that filled his eyes. On Xiao Yan's body, the 3 colors of holy flames annihilated and rotated, protecting Xiao Yan, and Xiao Yan also temporarily gave up the King of 10,000 Ghosts. The 10,000 Ghost King and Yu knew each other, and after a balance, the holy flame was more important. The pink light group hangs high like a round of shining sun, and a coercion of heaven and earth diffuses out invisible. Acacia broken enteritis is in the pink light. It seems that we are still a step late. The Master of Li Soul has entered the last step. After some investigation, Xiao Yan shook his head helplessly. Even if he possesses the guardian power of Yama, the 10th palace of clan marks, and even the blessings of many holy flames, he cannot break through the pink light group composed of the Lord of Li Soul and Acacia Broken Heart. Looking now, I'm afraid I can only wait. Xiao Yan shook his head with no results. Now, if he rashly shatters the pink light group, he might suffer a huge backlash, and let alone the enormous power required to shatter the pink light group, and since he doesn't know the state of the Lord of Souls, Xiao Yan is helpless for a while. Looks like it's still a step too late. You were on the side also agreed. Daimyo glanced lightly and found that the countless Yan-swallowing crystals inside were dimmed, and even the countless mysterious patterns on the exquisite sedan chairs were dimmed. Obviously now the Lord of Li Soul has reached a crucial step. King Wangi, what are you? For a while, Yu slowly walked towards the shackled King Wangi and asked. A direct disciple of the Dean of the Soul Academy? Wang Gui Wang was not surprised when he heard the words, and smiled slightly. Soul Mist is his own name, and this name also exists for some communication with the head of the Soul Academy, so it is reasonable for Yu to know the real King of 10,000 Ghosts. How could you? Yu Zaidu asked. All of this is planned by your master. He gave us the detailed map and entry method here, so as to want us to prevent the breakthrough of the Lord of Li Soul. The price is that you have developed a method for ghosts to devour holy flames, but I still underestimated him too much, but in the end I failed miserably. The King of Ghosts sneered, and there was still a touch of rebelliousness in his voice. The power of the Lord of Souls, I am afraid that it has touched the reincarnation now. Even if this breakthrough fails, his power will truly touch the reincarnation. So this time, he succeeded. He listened for a moment, watching the brighter pink light above the sky, a terrifying pressure that surpassed the energy of heaven and earth, slowly permeating, as if some unparalleled Holy Spirit was about to appear in the world. Yeah, he succeeded this time, but it's a pity that there is still me. Listening to Wang Gui Wang's words, Yu couldn't help but laugh. What about reincarnation? His breakthrough came from the research of their Soul Academy after all, and when the research was successful in the end, almost all the strong people in their Soul Academy were wiped out by him, but the Master of Li Soul forgot that the extreme will be the opposite. This method of ghosts swallowing holy flames is an act against the sky, so before the research, her master secretly left behind, so naturally there is a way to deal with it. Forget it. Seeing Yu and Wangi King like this, Xiao Yan also gave up the idea of asking, and looked lightly in the pink light group. At this moment, the entire space, like a heart that has been quiet for a long time, suddenly beats vigorously, and the whole area is filled with a strong unease. Not good. This guy. Looking at the sudden change in the pink light group in the void, the King of 10,000 Ghosts suddenly shook, and his pupils shrank tightly. Crash! A burst of pink energy ripples, like a volcanic eruption, suddenly burst out from the edge of the pink light group. Has he succeeded? Looking at this shocking scene, the corners of Yuer's mouth became dry, and in the void, a coercion that seemed to be of a superior spread out like the ruler of the heavens and the earth, and immediately opened his mouth with difficulty. No, the Master of Li Soul breaks through. Failed. Looking at this scene, Xiao Yan's expression was full of inexplicable restlessness, and his eyes were fixed on the pink halo. After the terrifying energy ripples dissipated, the illusory soul body of the Lord of Souls was reflected in Xiao Yan's line of sight. On the illusory palm, a delicate pink flame was beating gently. Xiao Yan, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Looking at Xiao Yan, who was surrounded by 3 holy flames below, the Master of Li Soul did not show any displeasure. It is as bright as a demon that fell into the abyss. Opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis. Continuing from the previous episode 1718. You lunatic, you still failed after all. Su. At this moment, looking at the Master of Soul Li who was standing above the void, the corner of his mouth couldn't help laughing. As an 8-star fighting immortal powerhouse, the King of 10,000 Ghosts can clearly detect that the body of Li Hun is full of scars, even riddled with holes, and his aura and strength have dropped significantly. This situation is not a sign of successful breakthrough. On the contrary, it is the sequelae left by the failure of breakthrough. Reincarnation, you must ferry back to robbery. The so-called reincarnation robbery is tailor-made according to one's own strength and experience, and it is one heaven and one underground with Do Xian robbery. Yeah, I failed. Even if you have mastered that method, the road of reincarnation is the real top of the entire world. Isn't it so easy to set foot on? Listening to the sneer of the King of Ghosts, the Master of Li Soul laughed at himself, but there was no anger. Very calm mood. No, the breath in this guy's body doesn't look like a breakthrough failure, but like this guy. What's going on? At this moment, looking at the Soul Master who was so weak and his strength even fell to the state of 7-star fighting immortals, Yu said with a very solemn expression. The current state of the Master of Souls seems to be exactly the same as the method that he has mastered to deal with the Master of Souls in the end, but that method is only known to you and the teacher. How could Master of the Souls know? Wrong. All this is definitely a coincidence. The current Master of Li Soul just failed to break through and is about to fall. You seem to want to see me very much. Ignoring Yuer's abnormality, Xiao Yan opened his mouth slightly, his voice filled with a hint of ease. As long as the Master of Li Soul did not break through the cycle of reincarnation, then this time, he would not be put to death, and the acacia-broken enteric inflammation was preserved intact at this time, which was better for Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan, the descendant of the Xiao clan, the giant in the world, has the blood of the Xiao clan, as well as many holy flames. Even when you entered the ghost world, I noticed you, but at that time, some pedantic guys in the 5th Academy supported you, and there was no chance to start. Now you're throwing yourself into the net, but it's really ridiculous. If those guys found out, I'm afraid they would regret embracing you very much. Lord Li Hun walked lightly, but he walked directly from midair to the top of Yan Yanjing, and walked towards Xiao Yan step by step. Don't be so pretentious. I know that everything you do now is just to force me to show up. Even I know that this time you break through the reincarnation, acacia broken enteric inflammation is not necessary for you. You need to break through the reincarnation. There are other things. Xiao Yan asked with a smile, without any panic, on the contrary, very calm. People who are too smart often don't live to the end. Listening to Xiao Yan's words, the look of the Lord of Li's soul suddenly burst into surprise. It was obvious that Xiao Yan would see through the situation he had arranged so carefully. The Lord of Souls was completely unexpected. Since I entered the perimeter of the Senate, and even later entered the Western Temple, I felt something was wrong. It was too easy along the way. In addition to the feeling of weakness you just showed by your failure to break through, and my induction of holy flame. The current acacia and broken enteritis should be in the most complete state, and you, Lord of Li's soul, have no qualifications and ability to devour holy flames at all. After sighing, Xiao Yan smiled as if he had the chance to win. It was discovered that he is indeed a descendant of the Xiao family. But I'm very curious. You clearly know that this is a trap. Why are you running here? The illusory soul body of the Lord of Souls showed a domineering aura. Perhaps, I have this fate. Xiao Yan replied with a smile. Maybe, I'll ask another way. What kind of trump card do you have to be able to get out of the hands of the Master of Souls, who I touch the reincarnation of? At this moment, the Master's aura was unmistakable, and he even attacked Xiao Yan's soul like a kind of interrogation by a superior. Go ahead, let me see how tyrannical the Master of Soul is. Xiao Yan roared, ignoring the provocation of Master of Soul. He knew that this battle was inevitable, and he also knew that this time he would 9 deaths and 1 life, but as long as there is a silver lining, Xiao Yan will not give up. Swallowing inflammation, Dragon God transformation, fighting soul, the fire of the 3 holy flames. For a time, Xiao Yan's body was completely enveloped by the undead flame domain to prevent himself from being obliterated by the Master of the Soul, and then his strength skyrocketed. Even the strength of his body and his arms were unparalleled. The terrifying power spreads like an awakened giant dragon, and the fighting spirit is also unprecedentedly vigilant. Xiao Yan, this is all prepared for you. And my path of reincarnation was also opened by you. Being able to help me break through the cycle of reincarnation can be said to be a great honor for you. As a price, I will make the entire Li Soul domain remember your Xiao Yan's name on countless planes. Shining forever, forever. So, get over here. The force of space filled Xiao Yan's body like the palm of the asterisk of death, and immediately a touch of fear of death filled Xiao Yan's heart. Wang buzzing, a cry of grief, uncontrollably trembled violently from Xiao Yan's chest. That feeling seemed to be begging Xiao Yan, hurry up, you can't stay here. Don't worry, you finally remodeled this heart for me, and I won't die once. Feeling the trembling fluctuations in the heart of the holy flame transformed by Mu Yingying, Xiao Yan gently touched it with the palm of his hand, comforted. Judgment. The Lord of Li's soul was unmoved at all. As a master of the generation, he naturally sensed the careful thinking and backhand of the Dean of the Soul Academy, so he did not directly swallow the acacia and broken enteritis according to their method, but taking acacia broken enteritis as a guide, Xiao Yan was attracted. Just ask a guy who can have several holy flames at the same time, if his cultivation technique is obtained by himself. I am afraid that the Master of the Soul will become a real reincarnation. This is the true purpose of the Master of Souls. As for abandoning the fire of immortality and leaving acacia heartbroken in secret, it is to further prove Xiao Yan's practice now that everything is ready. I only owe Dongfeng, as long as I obliterate it, occupy its body, and take Xiao Yan away flames, then not only will the problem of the inability of the soul body to condense the human body will be solved, but even the self will have as many as 4 holy flames at the same time. At that time, not to mention the mere ghost world, even if it is the great thousand world, the Lord of Li's soul will not be afraid. As for Du Qifei, who is related to Xiao Yan, although the power of reincarnation has already penetrated, the 2 thunder mountains in the center of the West Temple are impressively natural prisons, which can temporarily block them, and even accompany the one who guards Xiao Yan. A mysterious 8-star fighting immortal, in front of the Lord of Li's soul. He has no prestige. As the Lord of Li's soul said this, every void node in the entire space shone with silver light. When it turned into countless silver lights, it actually formed a scene of the most perfect silver space compass hanging vertically between heaven and earth. The silver space compass blocked all of Xiaoyan's escape routes, which was like a scythe of the asterisk of death, leaving Xiaoyan helpless. Snatch me the house. Seeing this scene, Lord Li's soul did not hesitate and used the space teleport directly. The original afterimage had not disappeared, and his body shot towards Xiaoyan's body, trying to seize the house. Xiaoyan, master his body and even everything. And the silver space compass brought a shocking death ray into Xiaoyan's pupils, blocking all of Xiaoyan's escape routes. Come on, whether it is heaven or hell, right here, let's have a complete break. Seeing this scene, Xiaoyan's mind suddenly closed, and an ancient pattern entered himself in the main soul of Li's soul. When inside the body, it quietly appeared on his forehead. The blood-red lines are looming, and there are faint bursts of Sanskrit sounds, like A** descending to earth. Godly mighty, opening parenthesis closing parenthesis. Continuing from the previous episode 1719. Xiaoyan. Seeing Xiaoyan's scene like this, a strange ghost energy spread from Yu-Er's body like a viscous liquid. Immediately, the space compass, which was as sharp as a death scythe and could obliterate Xiaoyan at will, was instantly pinched by him. It was shattered and turned into a piece of dust, and Yu-Er's power suddenly soared to the initial stage of the 8-star Do Xian, and even his body underwent earth-shaking changes, as if he had temporarily mastered the supreme power between heaven and earth. It seems that the Dean of the Soul Academy has given you everything she is. He is really a lucky little guy. It's time for me to go too. There are still many strong people here. After this time, the ghost world should change, and the attack of the evil tribes from outside the territory will also get closer. Because of the faint light, he easily disappeared here, obviously leaving behind, but he knew Xiaoyan's details, but the two were not enemies of life and death, so naturally there was no need for a rivalry, and the surrounding area had already been counted. An extremely tyrannical aura wraps around. If he doesn't leave, I'm afraid. As for the fact that he stayed here before, it was just to prove the success of the Master of Souls. The next moment, there were only Xiaoyan, the Master of Li's soul, and Yu-Er. Wing Om. Although the silver space compass was solved by Yu-Er, the Lord of Li's soul took the acacia heartbroken inflammation directly into Xiaoyan's body and stood in the spiritual palace of Xiaoyan's body. Take home. As long as Xiaoyan's soul spirit palace is completely seized, his memory is erased, or he has control over his body. Thanks to the many stubborn auras in Xiaoyan's body, the Master of Li's soul can completely invade this body. For a while, Xiaoyan will cease to exist, and the Lord of Li's soul will be reborn and take over everything Xiaoyan. This kid has actually gathered the spirit palace. It even filled the 3rd floor of the spiritual palace. The power of the soul in the late stage of Taishu is really not to be underestimated, but it's a pity that it met me. Looking at the crystal silver and antimony-like spiritual palace in Xiaoyan's soul realm, it roared like a vast ocean. It seems that he is declaring sovereignty and trying to drive away the Master of the Soul, but the Master of the Soul is the soul power beyond the realm of the emptiness, so these fluctuations are insignificant to him. But he glanced at the profound spiritual palace in front of him, and immediately there was a hint of hesitation in Lord Li's eyes, looking at the pink flames in his palm. His plan was to rely on the mystery of Xiaoyan's internal exercises to devour Acacia Broken Heart immediately, so as to directly seize Xiaoyan, inherit his most perfect body, and completely break through the cycle of reincarnation. Unfortunately, this plan was broken by the King of 10,000 Ghosts. For a time, the Lord of Li's soul also hesitated. In the end, whether to take Xiaoyan first, or to integrate Acacia Broken Enteric Inflammation with Xiaoyan first. Lovesickness, broken enteritis. After a while, above the spiritual palace, the soul power surging like an ocean in the 3-story spiritual palace slowly turned into a blurred figure, and immediately floated in front of the Lord of Souls. A soul clone constructed from soul power. It's a pity. Watching the soul avatar slowly taking shape, the Master of Soul Li smiled. Now Xiaoyan's power has been completely imprisoned by him. From the outside, Xiaoyan has entered a state of suspended animation, and he can only take Xiaoyan by himself, or Xiaoyan can devour himself. However, when he thought that his dignified half-reincarnation powerhouse would be swallowed by a 6-star fighting fairy, the corner of Li Soul Lord's mouth couldn't help becoming crazy. All of this was already doomed when Xiaoyan entered here. In all this, the winner will only be himself. Don't you want me to swallow acacia and broken enteritis, so as to take away everything from me and occupy everything I have? It's all here, so what are you waiting for? Xiaoyan walked around gently, his voice unsteady. You're smart, but stupid enough. I won't give you any chance, so give me a complete fall. Xiaoyan, I will naturally take over everything for you, fall in peace. Seeing Xiaoyan's fragile soul clone like a baby, the weak soul body of the Master of Souls couldn't help trembling and laughed wildly. Through the research of the Soul Academy, he has gradually mastered the power of acacia broken enteric inflammation. At this time, he was seriously injured. Naturally, he made preparations to devour and seize Xiaoyan, but he was afraid of the mysterious exercises in Xiaoyan's body. The Lord of Li Soul still did not plan to give Xiaoyan the acacia broken enteric inflammation. After all, Xiaoyan already had no less than 3 holy flames in his body. If he added the acacia broken enteric inflammation, it would probably have a big impact on the Lord of Li Soul. Lord of Li Soul really deserves his reputation. Seeing such a cunning Lord of Li Soul, Xiaoyan shook his head helplessly. Immediately, the illusory handprint turned rapidly, and suddenly, it turned into an ancient pattern. A cloud of silver light burst out around Xiaoyan's body. I don't have time to deal with you anymore. It's over. Seeing Xiaoyan's appearance like this, the Lord of Li Soul was somewhat amused, but the palm was slowly raised, and an indescribable terrifying force completely filled the entire spiritual palace like a sky. That is the fluctuation of reincarnation, even if it is only half reincarnation, and only 8 stars touch reincarnation, it is the power that Xiaoyan cannot resist. It's life or death, come on. Seeing the Lord of Li Soul looking down at him like an emperor, Xiaoyan's deafening roar resounded like the sound of thunder. Wait, what is this? After a while, the power of reincarnation on the palm of Lord Li's soul hadn't fully erupted, but he saw Xiaoyan's soul clone turned into a strange silver light. The silver light was like a mirror in space, and scenes that shocked the Lord of Li Soul appeared in the comparison. Xiaoyan, you read link to www.youcanshu.com. Remember that you are a descendant of our Xiao clan, and you have the power of protection of our Xiao clan. Protective power. The Xiao family has been silent for so many years, and it's time to come back. While speaking, it was an equally tyrannical human being. Xiao Xifen. Looking at the human being in the picture, the Master of Li Soul yelled, and even the illusory soul roared in rage like a beast. If it wasn't for Xiao Xifen at the beginning, I am afraid that now the Master of Li Soul has mastered the power of Xiao clan's guardianship, whereas the power of Holy Flame needed to break through the cycle of reincarnation. You have the power of protection of the Xiao clan. Impossible. The Xiao clan has already been wiped out, it's impossible. After Shun breathed, Lord Li Soul looked extremely nervous, and immediately spoke slowly. His voice was filled with a deep fear. The power of the Xiao family's protection, that touches reincarnation, is far from being comparable to 1.5 reincarnations. Yes or not, you should be very clear in your heart. An understated voice spread out. With my blood, call the spirit. In the next moment, a roar like a howling from the sky suddenly emerged from Xiaoyan's dry throat. Bang bang bang. As Xiaoyan's voice fell, the figure of the Master of the Soul was directly repelled by a supreme force. Today's Xiaoyan has a noble golden light pattern on his forehead, as if floating on the top of the sky. The sanctioner of the general, slowly blooming, belongs to its brilliance. The golden rays of light spread out, violent sound waves, and the force of the shock swept away, and the entire retreat place was like an overwhelmed palace, swaying, and it would completely collapse and shatter at any time. At this moment, the real holy light descended, and people couldn't help but feel that it was the wrath of the gods, the mighty gods, like the wrath of the sky. Opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis.